Excuse me. Okay, so I have to turn the key on.
Yeah.
And which one's the button?
I haven't labeled them yet, but it's the top left.
This one?
Yep.
And I just click it, right?
You just hold it until it starts.
Uh-oh.
It's going to have to relearn its idle again because of the vacuum leaks.
Okay.
Hit it again. Tell me that doesn't look cool. Little hidden intercooler piping in there. Somebody's happy with it.
I can't wait till we clear coat it. Because this just shows how much he's gonna, it's just gonna look so good with a nice clear coat on the patina.
Yes, I'm excited. But we're starting off.
Here, let me help you.
Yeah, it's still a little stiff hood. Next, turbo kit's done. We're going to get involved with some other stuff. I think I'm going to start with, I don't want to put the TIG welder away just yet, so I was thinking about other stuff I got to TIG weld. The Motion Raceworks catch can kit, I got to TIG weld 8AN fittings to the valve covers. So I'm going to do that next. I'm going to figure out where I want to mount the Motion Raceworks catch can, and then get that going. Sarah's painting the bracket for it. Just a tiny little thing hanging right here. And then I think she's going to go ahead and start putting the accessory drives on, like the water pump and the power steering and alternator.
I might need your creeper.
What's wrong? Can't reach?
I am 5'3". I'm not as tall as you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll figure it out.
I'm going to need a leg up.
All right. But yeah, it's game plan. So we're going to get to work. Sarah's putting on the accessory drive bracket with the power steering pump on it, which we used an outlet fitting and modified the pump. We have an old PSC pump outlet for 8AN feed, which I had a 6AN line on this. So all I got to do is just order an 8 to 6 adapter. We'll be good for that. She also put the water pump on, and then I'm working on mounting the Motion Raceworks catch can. I wanted to put it back here, right? This is where the heater core was. I took that off, which luckily on these Fords is super easy. It's just 3 studs, take the nuts off, push the whole assembly out. Good thing I did, because go figure, the 5 years this thing was sitting outside in the house. Let's get you some light here so y'all can see. Micey's were making a home inside it, and this boot that goes from here to the vent was all tearing and so on. But now I can get to the back, and what I'll do is I'm gonna nut and bolt that bracket, but it's gonna go just to the right of this stud hole, which matching this stud right here, we'll put it behind this boot. So if I ever replace the boot, I'll be able to reach up. If I ever have to take that bracket off for some reason, I can reach up behind the boot with flex and just get a wrench on the nuts, because I'm going to nut and bolt it. Or actually, I'm going to put the bolts through this side. But yeah, I can get a wrench on them to hold them in place. I'm going to get back to working on my Motion Raceworks catch can. It's getting a little late. I think that's going to be the last thing for tonight, just getting it mounted and getting the valve covers off and figuring out where I'm going to TIG weld those fittings on. All right, catch can install in progress. Found my mounting location, which is just in front of the heater core bolts. There's those 3 bolts you see there, and then the inlet outlet for the heater core down below. But now, next up, I'm working on getting the fittings welded to the valve covers on the motor. I got the one done. For those familiar with the stock LS valve covers, this is where that 90-degree little vent line connects. I popped that out, drilled the hole out, and put this fitting there. Is this dry? It's dry enough. The reason being, I wanted it to be in that baffle, so when I put this baffle back together, I limit the amount of oil hopefully getting in there. Right? And then on the other one, which I have yet to do, I was leaning towards remote mounting the coil packs, but for time and money's sake, I'm thinking I'm going to put them back on the valve covers. So with that fitting on the other one I just did, it clears the coil packs mounted in the stock location. This one, wanting to put the fitting somewhere, you see how this has this internal baffle in here, the holes leading through. I want to have it inside there, so I either got to go in the top again, but then it's not going to really work because of the gap, or I go where the PCV, I believe that was the PCV grommet goes, but this is way, here, let me show you. Fitting I have, it's like throwing a hot dog down a hallway. She don't fit. I mean, if I held it just right in the middle, somehow I could probably bridge that gap with the aluminum, but I don't want to do that. So I'm going to cut a piece of aluminum, weld it over top of this, re-drill it for my fitting, weld the fitting to that, or vice versa. Maybe I'll cut the piece and weld it to the fitting first and then weld it to the valve cover, one or the other, but I'm going to cut a piece to take up the gap and then put this fitting in place. That way it doesn't interfere with any other location of where the coil packs will go. That's the theoretical idea. We shall see if it works. There's our valve covers. Had a little bit of a disaster. I think whatever the aluminum this valve covers are made out of with the LS's, I had a little blowout there, pocket of air or something. Just, yeah, welding them was not easy. I mean, I'm not good, like I said, in first place, but that one came out all right. This one, with that washer I welded on the bottom, turned into a little bit of a disaster. The washer I made was just a hole saw piece I cut out of this aluminum, drilled it out to the size that I needed for the fitting, and then welded them both together, and then welded to the valve cover. But the welding, once it went to weld to the valve covers, it wasn't easy, man. I'm sorry if I sound a little congested. I'm battling a bit of a head cold today. But they're done. So now I can get my line and fittings out, and I'm going to bolt them back on the motor and make some lines for our catch can and that little project in this long line item list that Sarah and I made yesterday. Where is that list, speaking of? Total disaster in our shop right now. Yeah, but we got a whole list here, and crossing off the Motion Raceworks catch can will be one portion of that list. So, and just like that, let me get on my little stool here so I can show you folks. Motion Raceworks catch can installed. Mounted over there in the corner. Got our 2 AN lines running. This one to the top of the valve cover here. Clearance on that one injector is a little tight. I was really hoping to have it run straight back and then curl, but that's not the case because of this injector right here. I don't know if you can really see it. It's stuck in the shadow. Yeah, there it is. The plug to clear this is going to be tight, so I had to scoop it out early, which quite frankly, now that I look at it, doesn't look terrible. And it'll give more clearance for the coil packs now that I am putting them on the valve covers. This one, simple as can be, ran around behind the intake, tucked nice, and then over to the catch can. nice, simple little job finished, checked off the box tonight, which is pretty cool. Yes,
Gotta make sure to smile too.
I'm trying. So, okay. What do you want me to do? Go over today's plans?
We're gonna go over today's agenda because I'm asking a lot for today.
Yeah, Sarah wants a lot accomplished. So, the game plan is essentially, excuse me, I sound a little congested. We're getting over a head cold. Essentially, we are going to be figuring out, how this Holly system harness is going to lay on the engine through the engine bay. I kind of want to just drape it on there, figure out where everything goes, make it look decent, and then we're also going to be doing plumbing. So when I say plumbing, we got fuel line kits, we got PTFE lines. I've only done CPE lines. I have never used PTFE lines, so maybe that's what's throwing me off. I don't know. But yeah, we're going to be doing, like I said, the harness. Going to drape this onto the motor, get it lined up with how we want to put everything. I got to put the coil packs on, the valve covers to make sure. I have it set up where I can still put them on the valve covers. I'm apprehensive on doing that. I'm not sure exactly if I'm going to do that or not. That's why we went ahead and ordered extension harnesses for the coils. But gonna essentially just get everything mocked up to figure out how exactly we want to have it, and I want to make sure that we can have ourselves a nice, clean looking engine harness. I don't want it to look ugly and messed up and so on.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then like I said, we got the fuel line stuff. We have oil lines for the turbos that we could plumb in, different fittings for that. I'll be able to use both those you saw in previous videos. Excuse me. I'll be able to use both the ports, the one up front for the driver's side turbo on the oil pan, and then the one off the side for the passenger side turbo off the oil pan. And the one off the side on the passenger side was a 12 AN because I had a really big drain for that single turbo setup back in the day. So I just put a little adapter down to 10 AN from 12. We could plumb that. And then that way we can kind of, I have a bad tendency with all my other vehicles to have an engine bay look like a mess because of wiring going everywhere and hoses going everywhere.
We want it to look clean.
I want to route everything so it looks good and is secure and not going to have potential fire hazards with fuel lines or wires too close to exhaust parts and so on. Just make it right, make it good. And that was the other thing with the fuel system. We have a new fuel pump. Magna fuel pump, big boy. So obviously this is probably going to be pretty loud from what I heard, but it is what it is. We need fuel, and then we also got a Magna fuel.
Was it like a booster?
What?
That
No, it's not a booster.
Or
it's
like
a
a-
pressure regulator.
regulator. That was my next wording.
Booster? Yeah.
I thought it said.
Magna fuel.
Oh, it says boost regulator.
Yeah,
so I
because
thought,
so this little thing, it changes fuel pressure in a 1-to-1 ratio on the amount of boost you're pushing to the motor. So let's say we
Okay.
set the PSI at 58, right? And then as soon as you hit 1 PSI of boost, it's going to go to 59. 2 PSI of boost, it's going to go to 60. 3 PSI, 61, and so forth, right? So that way it keeps the pressure with the fuel needs up with the boost pressure. But yeah, it's a Magna fuel boost referenced fuel pressure regulator.
you have dirt on your face,
Where?
right
Just,
there.
you can tell me.
Well, I'm annoying.
Hey, boy. Rather than stick the camera right in my face and put your fingers all over
That's
my
what I
face.
do best.
So essentially that's our game plan. I know there's a few sensors I gotta see and make sure. I might have to order I have a low dollar Motorsports Mac valve boost control kit. There's a few other things I need to be able to run that completely. I'm debating at this point whether I'm going to go ahead and do the full boost control kit before we go to Bradenton, or if we're just going to go off a wastegate spring because it's just more money if I and more parts I got to order. But you sleeping?
No.
You've been acting like you've been sleeping all day.
No, I haven't.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Got a roof leak. All right, well, the Holly harness is somewhat mocked up, as you can see. I got to figure out where I'm going to bore a hole through the firewall, put that inside, because I want the ECU inside the cab. And then we have the injector harness in. The coils are sitting on there. They're going to get cleaned up. I'm not going to leave those dirty things on there like that. Okay, so we're going to learn these PTFE fittings together, right? Mm-hmm. It's PTFE and then there's CP. PTFE has that liner inside the hose. It's like a plastic nylon liner, right?
Okay.
Reason I went with this is in case we ever do decide to run like E85 or something like that in here, it won't deteriorate it theoretically.
Okay.
I don't really want to run E85 because that does plenty of other damage to O-rings and other things. Mm-hmm. But if we ever did, I wanted to have the capability, just God forbid, right? And whatever other race gas or race fuels we might be putting into it. But according to the directions I've read, this is the first time I've done this, is literally what you're seeing on camera. You take what they call the fitting nut, right, on the first, put that over everything, right? And then they have, what they call it?
They called that, the olive.
The olive?
Yeah.
Where'd
the
you
instructions
put,
are right here.
Where'd you put
Under
them?
my keys. They called, way to go.
Figures.
They called it the olive.
So we're just doing it on the pre-cut end already. If you were to cut the hose, you're supposed to use a fine-tooth hacksaw or a cutoff wheel. I always cut my braided hoses with a cutoff wheel, right?
But you're also supposed to
So I'm
fray.
getting there. Thank you.
Well, I read the directions too, so.
Yeah, so the, yeah, you're right, the olive or ferrule. So you got to push, you got to flare the braid out, right? Wonder what they give you this tool for.
Probably to put the
Just
olive
make sure,
in.
probably just to make sure it's rounded, maybe. Might be for the olive, you're right. Let me get a
Because
tiny,
they have this into the clamp.
right.
Or the vise.
This is where I get to stab my fingers 1,000 times with the...
But you also gotta make sure you don't.
So they say to flare these out, right?
Without destroying the lining.
All right, now where did I put the olive? There it is. So I'm gonna put this on.
I think that's when you should probably put this in the vise.
Well, they say to make sure it's flush. So the nylon's got to be flush. This has the olive has a lip, right? And the nylon,
Okay.
it's got to be flush. Now, what do they say with this tool? They don't show this tool at all in here.
You sure?
That's the end of the fitting.
Oh.
So that's on there. So then I got to take this, right? And that gets pushed in like that. And then I guess you take that back.
And then you just tighten it.
I believe so.
Crunchy.
Yeah, because there I'm bottomed out on the There it is. And it's all boogered up because I had it in a metal vise. I don't have any AN clamping tooling or anything like that. So, do all my fittings get boogered up a little bit? Yes, they do. What are you going to do? But there we have it. Today's goal, I'm actually taking stuff back apart a little bit. I got to pull the intake back off because I had some parts show up from Low Dollar Motorsports, right? And these are just essentially, as the name says, Low Dollar Motorsports, cheaper version sensors. Not saying they're bad, they're just less expensive than ordering like Rife sensors or stuff like that, or stuff from Holley. For example, I got a 100 psi pressure sensor here, another 100 psi pressure sensor. I have to look up the part numbers. I think one of them's set for fuel, the other one's just for like a air pressure, like used as a dome sensor, right? Which is what we're going to be using for. I just don't know. One's a 899, the other's a 799. I got to figure out which one's which. They're going on their website. Then we have another 799 100 psi pressure sensor, temp sensor, which is going to be like intake air temp probably, right? Let's see here. All right, we're back. So you're going to notice this map sensor, not your typical GM map sensor, right? Typical GM map sensor, these guys right here. We're no longer running that. We're going to run this. Why? Because we're going the real race car route. And we are remote mounting our sensors. So we got these 4 ports over here, also have 2 on the back. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all vacuum ports, right? So that is where we can put our map sensor. We could put feeds, distribution feeds for the wastegates, the blow-off valve, all come off of this, right? All essentially need your boost pressure reading. Then you have, the rest of these are just in and out. So you have 1, 2, 3. They're straight, they bore straight through. They do not connect across. They bore straight through. They do not connect across, right? So you put a pressure sensor here and then the feed. Pressure sensor, feed. Pressure sensor, feed. Reason for doing this is some of these high detail sensors will get choppy or get bad feedback with the actual vibration of the engine. So by putting this on rubber mounts, remote mounting it, and let's say you want to do fuel pressure. So you'd run just a short 4AN line from your regulator to here, fuel pressure sensor on top. Then you want dome pressure. You run another one from your wastegates to here, dome pressure sensor on top. And I'm trying to think what the last one would be. Oil pressure you can have directly on the motor. I'm drawing a blank, but there's options, right? So is things like the oil pressure sensor, right? They came with an adapter to fit into the factory GM sensor location. And I'm gonna pull the intake off. Well, first I'm gonna decipher how I can open a plastic bag. It's ridiculous. Come on, wow. Struggle, Sam. I'm going to pull the intake off. I'm going to get to the back there, change out the oil pressure sensor, put the new sensor adapter, which changes the GM port to 1/8 inch MPT, right? Put the oil pressure sensor on there, plug it in, because the Holley system has just a regular 3-prong plug, like so, right? Which does not match the factory GM oil pressure sensor. So we're changing it. We're updating it. And then what else I'm going to do while I'm back there, I have to rotate. There's the steam port down in here I put in the Motion Raceworks steam port kit. I got to rotate that steam port over. I'm also wanted to show you guys, I wouldn't have pulled it back off just to show you, sorry, but I will show you guys. We did put the Motion Raceworks steam port kit in right after we dropped the engine in the valley, and then we found out that the Motion Raceworks steam port kit is not meant to be used with any of the plastic factory GM intakes. So we had to modify it a little bit, just bending some tubing. I wanted to show you that. I'm sure Motion Raceworks is going to tell you don't do it, but we did it anyways, just because I spent a lot of good money on it. I didn't want to return it. I wanted to make use of it. And I did realize that with a slight minor plastic trimming on a TBSS intake and a slight bend to the stainless pipes in the kit, it fits just fine. And it works out great, I think. Will it trap air in certain spots? I don't know. I hope not, but I'm pretty sure we're okay. So let me hop in here. I'm going to tear this apart real quick and show you exactly what we're hooking up. Well, Mr. LS guy over here, you know what I don't have? The specialty LS oil pressure socket, so I broke it. Don't need it anymore. I just snapped the top of it off, pulled the sensor out with a regular 1 16" socket. Cheating, I know, but whatever. Key. Good and tight. Now, Low Dollar Motorsports. Bundles kits. LS sensor starter kit for Holly EFI. Alright, Low Dollar Motorsports oil pressure sensor part number 79901 Hundo. Got my 1-inch socket. I only have those that big, deep in impact, so I'm hoping it clears the whatchamacallit, the cam sensor here. Bingo. Now I can take my harness, successfully hook up my oil pressure sensor. So there's the Motion Raceworks steam port kit. I had to put, you could see, I had to bend it down to get this whole block assemblies to sit lower. All four corners, I curled them down a little bit. Could it theoretically mean that you get a chance for air to trap in these top spots right here? Maybe. I really doubt it. So the only other thing I want to do is, a lot of guys will tap an MPT fitting right here with a barb, so I can run a little short hose from there to there, and that'll tie the steam port kit back into the water pump. So there's the oil pressure sensor installed. Cam's plugged in. The only plug back here I'm not going to be using is my NOx sensor plug. So I think while I'm back here, I'm going to kind of try and organize my harness a little bit. Got some stuff lying around. Wires I got to run and locate. I might actually go ahead and drill the hole for where the harness is going to go through and run it now because I have the room. That would make sense, wouldn't it? Alright, so I'm going to do next. I modified the Ocean Raceworks steam port kit. It had that little outlet tube here. I actually ended up drilling and tapping this for 1/8 inch MPT, putting a 4AN 90, and then making a line from there out of some leftover steel braid, older stuff I had, to go to the 4AN fitting here. So steam port kits officially tap. A lot of guys on the LSs tap them into their top of their water pumps, so I just went with that method. Wiring harness is all installed. I had to extend my fuel pressure harness to the sensor where it is in the face of the fuel pressure regulator. Otherwise, the terminator harness is in, except for, I don't like that mount for my distribution block for sensor block. This plug is for the map sensor I got to plug in. I'm going to have to change that though. And I still have to weld a bung into the exhaust for our wideband on both this side. That one's the wideband for feeding the terminator. This side is going to get the wideband for just our gauge, our secondary gauge, just to make sure I can monitor both banks of fuel readings. Because like I said earlier, the Terminator X unfortunately only does capable of reading off of one wideband O2. So therefore in this configuration, it's only going to get one cylinder bank, which is the passenger side. But with the Terminator X, clip my door open here, it is installed. Look at this. Built mount, mounted right here under the dash so I can see. It's got like some diagnostic lights along the top. I want to be able to see. The harness is tucked in, and then going down along our tunnel cover under the seat back here. Could be a little cleaner, but I'm essentially wiring a ground distribution point and a power distribution point on the bottom here, which is going to be this power distribution point though is going to be capable of being shut off from a master kill switch. This is your accessory feed. When I key the ignition on from the actual ignition switch of the truck, the key switch, this will go hot, right? This feeds accessory to the Holly through this wire, and it feeds, there's a wire tucked up here, accessory to our switch panel, which is the aux beam switch panel I'm going to be running, right? And from there, we'll have a starter button. Reason this is happening is, go to the other side for you folks, because of the ignition switch wiring on these Ford trucks. So when you go to fire these things up, I ran into this when I initially wired the micro squirt in here years back. So you key on, right? Everything comes to life. It feeds power off of 2 terminals on the back of the switch. When you go to crank, it kills power to those 2 terminals and only feeds power to the cranking signal on the starter, right? It would send power to the solenoid on the starter, fire the truck up. I'd have to search back in the diagram, but I'm pretty sure how these trucks stayed running was when you went to crank, you lost power at the ignition switch, but it kept power at the voltage regulator, which would get the ignition system to fire the truck off. With the EFI and everything else, I'm sure I could probably either A, switch that switch out, which I don't really feel like doing, because then I got to change the key, and that same key works for the door lock cylinders. But like I said, I'm pretty sure how Ford did it back in the day is it kept power through the voltage regulator. I'm just going to have a switch panel, so essentially the truck will key on like that, and there'll be a starter button. The switch panel I'm going to mount over here somewhere. I'll just hit the starter button. But everything will still like key off, truck's going to shut down. It's all going to work ignition. I'm just not going to crank it with this, right? Going with a starter button. And that switch panel is also going to run other things, like, for example, our locking rear differential. This has a Sterling 10.5 out of a 2013 Ford truck. So it's got an electronic locker in there, which is pretty cool. But yeah, there's 6 circuits available on this. And we will have a decent amount of options to be able to, oh, excuse me, plug in whatever we need. But I also set up this terminal block for any other accessories that we want to heat up off the ignition switch itself. The radio, everything else up here is still wired with the Ford factory wiring. That's going to maintain that. What I'm working on right now as we speak is how I'm going to feed that factory harness with power. Initially it came from, I had to dive back in because, you know, it's one of those moments where you just start unhooking stuff and you forget where it went. I had to dive back in and figure out which part of this harness on the passenger side connected to like the alternator and battery to feed power. This is our feed for power to the ignition and everything else on the truck side, the chassis side I'm going to call it, versus the ECU side. So I'm going to strip the loom back. These are the plugs that go into the dash in just behind the glove box. I'm going to strip the loom back all the way to basically right here at the plug and start figuring how I'm going to hook this stuff up. Now I think about it, I don't think I need this stripped up. I guess I should probably just go inside because this has got to get run to that block for power. I'll just cut it here, splice a new connector on and go that route. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Now we're recording.
Okay, so Sam says I have to put about a quart in here. So I'm going to do a little bit at a time, and then I'm going to use this when it fills up to get it into the torque converter a little bit. So
You're saying so as many times as I do.
oh, it's bubbling.
Mm-hmm. It seeped it right down in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right, pour some more in. It drops every time you do the plunger thing?
Yeah. It just dropped again.
Good? Yeah, we're close enough.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Oh, wrong button. Yeah, I'm gonna have to reset that. Well, we had our first start last night, as you've already seen. Don't mind that, that's just some power steering fluid. But came out in the shop And there's no better feeling than having your first start the night before. Check the truck out, pack it up, come back out the next day, and there's antifreeze and trans fluid all over the frickin' floor. Cool. Freaking awesome. All right, update on those leaks I found. One, antifreeze was the heater core, exactly like I thought. Luckily for us, it was just a loose hose clamp. One hose is, I'm going to admit the one hose is a little bit, just a hair big for that heater core inlet, outlet, whatever side it is. So I just tightened the crap out of the hose clamp. We'll see how that works. Second was the transmission fluid. My fault, dumb. Brilliant, right? Somebody never changed the 4L80 tail housing output seal that goes around the slip yoke. Changed that seal out. Found the bushing inside there was toast. That was the other part of it. It's like I just completely had a brain fart and didn't do anything to the tail housing and the transmission. And it's what happens when you're a four-wheel drive guy. None of those transmissions have those. They just have an empty housing that connects to the transfer case. But I'm just over here rambling. The bushing that slip yoke rides on was shot as well. So I knocked that out, put the new one in from our kit. I was wondering where that went when I had that left over in the kit. Put a new seal in there and realized that I also forgot the freaking O-ring that goes around the, there's like a male boss on the end of that tail housing. You put the O-ring on there and then it's a square cut O-ring. That was dumb. Square cut O-ring. Square cut seal. And that seals up the mating surface between the tail housing and the rest of the transmission case. If that wasn't leaking, I wouldn't have realized then I forgot those bits and we could have had potentially a worse situation.